Journey IFC strives to create safe spaces to worship God. Know that you are welcome just as you are, regardless of religious background or lack thereof, skin color, political affiliation, sexuality, age, culture, or any other label you own or society throws on you. You are welcomed and celebrated here just as you are.
Well, I wanted to share a reading. So we're not a lectionary church, but the lectionary is a list of all of the readings that fit for a Sunday, and if you follow all of the readings in 3 years, you have whatever. But I was looking at it for Epiphany, and one of the readings was really good, and I thought it was a sweet way to start a service. And it comes from Isaiah 60, 1 through 6, and it is from the prophet Isaiah, and this comes from the Hebrew Bible. And it goes like this. Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of God has risen upon you. For darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness over all people, but God will arise upon you, and God's glory will appear over you. Nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. I love the language all I like here. Lift up your eyes and look around. They all gather together. They come to you. Your sons shall come from far away, and your daughters shall be carried in their nurses' arms. Then you shall see and be radiant. Your heart shall thrill and rejoice, because of the abundance of the sea shall be brought to you. The wealth of the nations shall come to you. A multitude of camels shall cover you, whatever that means. The young camels of Midian and Ephah, all those from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and frankincense, and shall proclaim the praise of God.
Good morning, I'm Alan.
Hi, Alan.
All right, today's reading is from Matthew 2. Our second reading is the continuation of our Christmas story from the Jesus story called Matthew. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who was born the King of the Jews? For we observed his star in the east and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea. But for so it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen in the east, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road.
Alan, you should do voiceover work. I feel like you have a good voice for that. It just hit me. You and Ace, every time I read, I'm like, they all have good voices for this.
That was great.
Well, welcome back to Journey, everyone. I'm glad to see you all. The last time we were all gathered in this space together, not even all of us, but some of us, was the evening before Christmas, where we sang some songs and we read a story about this child named Jesus who was born. Some of us even wore some costumes. We all lit some candles, and we talked about having a little more room in our hearts for one more. For just over a month, we have spent time with this story of Jesus' birth, and we have discussed it from various angles, talking about love and peace, hope and joy. And although our Christmas Eve candlelight service feels like the peak moment of it all, Christmas technically continues till today or yesterday when we celebrate Epiphany. And that's where the 12 Days of Christmas comes in and why we started with that song earlier. That is what we're celebrating today, the Epiphany, this 12th day. For those of you who did not grow up in a church or around that kind of language, you may not know of this holiday. We do it here at Journey, but you may be new to it still. You may just know that the word epiphany means a sudden realization or revelation, and that is also the same for Christian circles, but it gets a little bit more. Upon that is attached a particular story about these so-called wise men from foreign regions coming to this small town in Judea, guided by a star to meet a child, said to be the King of the Jews. I personally don't remember Epiphany all that much from my early days of church going, probably because my family tended to miss that Sunday, because after the holidays, who can make a trip? In fact, y'all are here, kudos to y'all. I wouldn't have done that, but I get paid to be here, so it's a little easier to show up. And so really what I remember about Epiphany was that my mom used to say the Christmas tree is supposed to stay up until Epiphany. That's when you can take it down. That's the one rule. So that's all I knew of Epiphany, was that was when we were going to undecorate. And in fact, if y'all want to stay and help undecorate, we can do that after the service as well. But really, honestly, my family waited a little bit longer because although we planned on taking it down on Epiphany, we really wouldn't end up taking it till like Valentine's Day or later. Sometimes we had a tree that then became, the St. Patrick's Day tree. And then it was the Easter tree, and my mom was like, okay, I need to stop now. We've got enough trees out of this. But for me, that was the only real reference I had for Epiphany. And I think a lot of people don't have a lot of reference for this. And the Day of Epiphany is not a highly talked about or celebrated event for much of the Christian world, let alone the rest of the world. But yet I do believe it's an important day to remember and an important story to discuss, especially in the saga of Jesus' early life. The word Epiphany comes from a Greek word, I don't have that Greek word, but it means manifestation. And this manifestation tends to have this emphasis placed on seeing something for the first time, even though it has always been there. So the Epiphany celebration is the recognition or awareness of something that has always been there, even though we could not see it. Epiphany is that kind of aha or eureka moment. And the Epiphany story that we have is based around the tale of this group of wise men, sometimes called Magi or kings, who traveled from these foreign lands in the east. Honestly, these men probably were not kings. We don't have any record. It doesn't reference them as kings. We kind of added that. But history has given them this title and has even named 3 of them, even though we don't know how many there are. We just know that they brought 3 gifts, so might as well make it simple and make 3 of them. But they're given names Caspar and Balthazar and Melchior. And if y'all were part of the Lamb book study, which I will never live down because that book was weird enough, you may remember those characters that were in the book study. But these men represent the witness of the foreign nations coming to meet this newborn king. And the story goes that these wise men traveled via starlight direction. We were talking about Garmin earlier. They didn't use that. They just used a star to meet this child. A star in the sky is what they followed. But on their journey to find the king, they run into another king, King Herod. And I want to say that, and in my head, a soundtrack of like, boo, comes in. He was a troublesome king. I don't want to do that with him, but that's just what in my head I hear. And so they ask King Herod about, where is this newborn king of the Jews? And they tell of their purpose to, travel and pay him homage. To which King Herod kind of has a weird reaction to. King of the Jews, that is really his title. That's his role. And he did not want to give up his throne to anyone else because what kind of king would do such a thing, right? So Herod told the wise men to continue on their way, but to report back to him so that he could go pay homage to the new king as well. When really we know that Herod was just trying to lure this new king into his own death, solidifying Herod's rule over the Jewish people. But as the rest of the story has gone so far, and as we have talked about through all of Advent, nothing pans out as planned. And so the wise men travel to Bethlehem, and they stop when they find this place where the star shone over a child. And when they finally arrive after traveling so far, we're not sure how far, but very far probably, and with all this expectation and hope in their hearts, they are filled with a great joy about what's about to happen. This new king was born, and they were finally going to meet him. The Magi enter into this home in Bethlehem, and there they find Mary, a young mother with her son, a child named Jesus. Not a very regal sight. This doesn't have the fanfare or pomp and circumstance of royalty as we see it today. I don't know if you've watched any of the royal weddings or whenever the king was crowned, but there was no carriage or white horse or crown or scepter, no weird songs. No, instead the Magi meet a child from humble origins, accompanied by his mother Mary, and all of it is so ordinary. But they know of him as the long-expected king. And so the Magi kneel down and pay him homage and gift him with gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. Terrible gifts for a child, but gifts fit for a king. Knowing what a beautiful thing that they had just witnessed, and after experiencing the hospitality of Mary, these wise men knew that they could not return to Herod and to tell him about where Jesus was. For the Magi knew of Herod's intentions because it says they learned about it in a dream, and so they chose to leave by a different road than they came through, thus protecting this new king and showing where their loyalties now laid, in that humble home with Mary and the young Jesus. The importance of these travelers coming from afar and meeting Jesus is that this reveals to us that Jesus is not only the King of the Jews, as they call him, but the King of so much more. In this moment of the Christmas story, it is revealed that God is for all people from every nation, not only just the Jews, but for everyone. And in this, an epiphany occurs, a sudden realization of something that was always there. God is for us and with us all, no matter where we come from. And that is the significance of this Epiphany holiday. While the celebration of Epiphany is not always the most popular, ancient people loved this story. In fact, a lot of early Christian art focused on these Magi or the wise men. Many paintings and icons were made of these mysterious characters. This is why they were given names and backstories, and titles like kings or wise men were labeled onto them. Early Christians found comfort in a symbol of God being for them. Art depictions of the Magi were similar to the Statue of Liberty in our days. It was the symbol of, this place is now our home, that we are welcomed in as travelers from afar. It makes sense why these people love the story of the Magi. It meant they belonged too. And the same goes for us as well. Another interesting art fact that I learned this week that relates to this Epiphany is found in the iconography in the Eastern church traditions. Iconography is the usage and sometimes admiration or worship of images of different people. You may have seen icons that depict Mary or Jesus. They're often surrounded by angels or demons sometimes, stomping them, or there's gold paint around the edges. There are icons that I've seen for Martin Luther King Jr. and other saints like St. Nicholas. Icons are really just a way to embody the lives and stories of those that have gone on before us. And people will honor these images and light candles and pray to them or pray through them. Icons become sacred pieces of art in this way. They've even been called windows into heaven that can help us focus our attention on divine things. You may have seen that some icons have halos while others do not. They're really pretty. They're fun to look at if you ever get a chance. And apparently in Western traditions, such as with the Roman Catholic Church, halos and icons represent saints or holiness. That's kind of it. It's just a holy person. But in the Eastern tradition, there is a difference. Icons that have a halo represent when someone had an epiphany. Therefore, when halos show up around someone, this means that something has manifested in this individual's life. And in the Eastern tradition, halos were granted to those who finally understood who Jesus really was. It's also interesting to note that The disciples don't even really get halos until much later into their careers. They're often depicted without halos because so often they do not understand Jesus. Because they knew Jesus, but they could not fully grasp what was before their eyes. But other people get halos, like the Roman guard at Jesus' crucifixion who says, "Truly, Jesus is the Son of God." That guy got it, and he received his halo, at least in iconography, that is. And so like the halo, the glow of the halo or the gleam of a star leading these wise men, Epiphany is all about light and how light casts out all darkness. And how this light, once revealed, changes us. In fact, this divine light seems to change everything it touches, meaning the darkness cannot overcome it. And somehow the light has always been there, even when we were not able to see it. In Jesus' days, if you were struck with leprosy or any skin condition, you were seen as unclean. You weren't allowed in your home with your families. You couldn't go to temple and worship. You couldn't eat with other people. You became outcasted by society. No one could even touch you. All because people feared that they would get sick too, right? Because they believed that physical sickness was caused by spiritual sickness. So to touch someone sick was to put yourself at risk of also getting sick, both physically and spiritually, as if it were that simple. Therefore, when Jesus enters into our scene and he starts touching everybody and all these sick people, people are completely astonished. How can he touch sick people and not become sick himself? We see here that the darkness or the sickness, whatever we want to call it, cannot overcome whatever Jesus is all about. Much like the light, everything Jesus touches changes. And when Jesus was born into this world, an epiphany occurred. God touched the earth, and the light shone upon all of creation. Something became known to the world. Something that was always there, even though we could not see it with our own eyes. And on Epiphany, we celebrate this manifestation of God to the whole world, Jew or Gentile, slave or free, us or them, yes, everyone, even you and me. So what do we do with Epiphany? How are we forever changed by the touch and light of Christ that was made manifest in the story of foreigners being welcomed into the home of a child king? Well, we can retell the story and remind each other that we are all welcome here. And we can remember that once we have seen this light, we are forever changed. In this Advent series that we are, finishing up today, and this is kind of the time to do that, we have been discussing light shining on different parts of this Christmas story. And I know at the beginning of our, planning with our soul team meeting as we prepared for this series, Margaret, Nathalie, and I all talked about how no character in the story is ever considered the light. Instead, each person is just pointing others towards the light. And as we talked about that, I have to say, it kind of felt like a relief to hear that for me. I don't know how that feels for y'all. Because it was like, I don't know if I can be the light for others all the time. I'm not sure I have that halo on me like the icons, but I know that at least I can point people towards the light or help shine the light on places that once felt dark. And I think we all have this ability to share the light with those around us and to follow this light like a star in the night sky. For once we experience it, we are changed forever. And we can't help but spread this light with the whole world. Because that is what this light is meant for, everyone. But the thing is, the light has always been there, and it will continue to be there. And at times it will shock us when the light shows up in a place we hadn't seen it before. For that is God working in our lives, shining light on all of us, like the light shone on Jesus. Like the light that shone on the Magi and the shepherds and on Joseph and Elizabeth and John the Baptist. And like the light that we have shown on hope and love and joy and peace. The light has always been there. So let us follow the light and see what it is shining on next. Let us see what is being made manifest before our eyes, an epiphany. May we continue to celebrate this epiphany and share the light as much as we can. May it be so. Amen. So I'll be honest, the thing I've been looking forward to most today is the second half of our worship gathering today. And in particular, the gifts of Pat and Lisa, who we've had here before, who have offered their gifts. But they're going to share a song for us that I think is a beautiful way of welcoming in the new year. I think it fits perfectly for Epiphany. We've been emailing for like a month. Nathalie has been trying to get this set up, and then Nathalie's not even here, so we're sad about that. But I want to welcome Pat and Lisa up. Thank y'all so much. So.
Thank you all so much for having us. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, to be brought into so much light. May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. May I suggest this time is blessed for you. This time is blessed and shining almost blinding bright. Just turn your head and you'll begin to see the 1,000 reasons that would just be on your side. The reasons why I suggest you, why I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a world that's been addressed to you and intended only for your eyes. A secret world, a treasure chest to you, a prize of its scenes and brilliant dreams that mesmerize. A tender lover's smile, a tiny baby's hands, the million stars that fill the turning sky at night. Oh, I suggest, yes, I suggest to you, yes, I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a hope that's been expressed in you, a hope of 7 generations, maybe more. This is a faith that they invest in you. It's that you'll do one better than was done before. Inside you know, inside you understand. Inside you know it's yours to finally set right. And I suggest, yes, I suggest to you, and I suggest this is the best part of your life. This is a song, comes from the west to you. Comes from the west, comes from the slowly setting sun. This is a song with a request from you to see how very short the endless days will run. And when they're gone, and when the dark descends, we give anything for one more hour of light. May I suggest this is the best part of your life. Ooh.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Thank you. It used to be a pet peeve of mine when I would go to church and someone would do this like beautiful song, and then everyone afterwards would sit quietly because you couldn't clap in church, right? So I want to clap again because that was amazing. So as I said, the second part of the service is what I'm most excited about is the music, and it's an activity that has become a recent tradition. In the past, I want to say like 10 years. Churches have started doing this activity called Star Words, and you may remember we did it last year, where we have all these random words. They're all different. None of them repeat. I know because I handpicked them all and cut them out with the help of Skylar. And they're all new words. They're not any repeating words from last year. So you will not get the same word if you did this last year. But last year I got a word that was fun. That was my word. And so this entire year I've been really trying to revisit that throughout the year. You may have forgotten your word. Mine's on my desk, so I won't forget it. It's okay if you've forgotten it. But the hope is that we can take whatever word and ponder on it, grow with it, think about it. But a year ago, at this moment, I was in Israel. I had just gone on a trip, and I had spent Epiphany, a day, which would be January 6th. I spent it at the Western Wall, in the egalitarian part of the Western Wall, where men and women can be together. And we sang, and we danced, and we had so much fun. And so I'm a little sad to go into this new year, because I'm like, I don't want to give up on fun, and I'm not going to. But we're going to get another word today. And so what I want to invite you to do is we're going to do an activity. I know sometimes picking one feels like, oh, dang, I got stuck with fun or, whatever. I got chores. That's what I'm doing. They're a lot more fun than that. So I invite you to come and you can pick up two. You can pick up, there's no rules here, we're at Journey. But I invite you to pick up two of them and then to pick whichever word feels good for you, that, sparkles. If neither of them sparkle at you, put them down, pick up 10 more, I don't care. And then I have some paper on this back corner and some pens, and I invite you to sit down, and we're just going to do an activity. Let's get the words, and we'll sit, and then I'll walk us through the activity. So I invite you forward to get your star word.
May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. May I suggest this time is blessed for you. This time is blessed and shining almost blinding bright.
So once you get your word, I invite you on that scratch sheet of paper. Again, if the pen doesn't work, mine's like half working. We can get another. We can throw them away. But what I want you to do is just take like a minute or so and kind of brain dump. When you read that word, just any word you associate with it, no one's going to grade it. If you put egg on there, I'm not going to judge you. You can put anything, but just get all of the things that you can think of with that word, just anything you relate to it. So we'll do that for a minute, and then we're going to split up into groups and talk about our word. And then if you get to a place where you feel like you've gotten enough on there, I want you to get groups of maybe 3 or 4. If you did more or less, that's okay. To just discuss what word you got, why you chose it over the other one you had, and then maybe discuss some of the things you wrote down that stand out to you. So let's split into groups. Zoomers, maybe if y'all want to chat amongst yourselves on Zoom. I think Wade gave y'all some words, right? So I think they have a list to look at.
So, Epiphany. Basically the aha moment, or realizing something for the first time that's always been there. So Epiphany is about realizing something new out of something we take very ordinary every day. So I'm going to give you a very ordinary blessing that if you were Presbyterian, Methodist, Baptist, whatever, the same blessing every Sunday. May God's grace fall down upon you. May God's countenance fall over you. May God's peace surround you every Sunday. So here's the epiphany out of that one. Do what you're going to do. God's got your back. It's right there in front of our faces. If anything has shown us in this past year, that if we place our trust in God, it gives us confidence and peace. And here's another one. All I'm waiting for is the other shoe to fall. Well, then I'll have a pair. So go this week, enjoy Epiphany, but better yet, look for them all throughout the year. And before you know it, we'll be right back here again. Go in peace. Amen.